Yeah, greetings everybody, and welcome again to another one of our PSCM or Mojo session. And as you can see, the title behind me this week, we'll be looking at the African Continental Free Trade Area, which came into being on the 1st of January of this year. But as usual, before we go into our main topic, I'd like to pass you over to Ndugu Amani, who will be changing the vibrations for us.
Asante sana Ndugu Tahaka and Ham Jambo Jamaa. So it means greetings kindred in Kiswahili. And Kiswahili is the language that we use in the Pan-African Congress movement, because in the 6th Pan-African Congress, it said that if there's ever going to be a united continent, it may be in the shape of the United States of Africa, that the lingua franca should be Kiswahili, the language that's spoken by millions, the most spoken language on the continent, and so respects all other languages, and they should be retained. But the language for commerce, for communication, should be Kiswahili, and so we've adopted that in the Pan-African Congress movement. So, as it says, I'm Ndugu Imani, which means brother Imani, and I'm a member of the Pan-African Congress movement and a African spiritual life coach. So we're going to go through the usual ritual where we invocate the power of all existence within us, and also the ancestors and the powers that underpin all things as aspects and manifestations of the creator of the all that is not outside of us but within us. But before we start to do that, we're going to get ourselves into the right frame of mind, and that is by using our breath, which is our link between our spiritual senses and our physical senses. So that's that breath is life, and we're going to use that to make ourselves more centered, make ourselves calm, to allow us to move away from where our enemies would want us to be, which is animalistic, emotional, and reactive, so that we can call upon our higher faculties and understand and plan and act in accordance with our ancestral guidance and vibration. So we're going to breathe together, and what we'll do is we'll breathe together 3 times. So as we breathe out, you pull your stomach in, and that forces the air out of your nose. And as you breathe in, you relax your stomach, and that brings in the air through your brings it in the air through your that brings it into your nose. We'll breathe out through our mouth and in through our nose. It's called something, people call it the pot belly technique. So I'll count, and each breath we're trying to forget about where we're going to do, what we've been doing previously, what we're going to do, be centered, be calm, feel that cleansing breath come into us, and then all the stresses and strains that leave us, so that we're in the right frame of mind. So if you wish to take part, please do. African spirituality is not about coercion, it's about peace and love, and us becoming more comfortable in our traditional way of life, being one with nature and all things. But if you want to take part, please do. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. Don't feel any coercion to do so. But if you do take part, just remember that it's very important that we are aware of what we do, and that we're doing it consciously, because our higher selves will make a record of what we say and what we're committing ourselves to, and will hold us to that. So we're going to breathe out. So sit straight if you are, feet flat on the floor, palms of your hands on your thighs. So your spine is straight, and so therefore your 7 energy centers that the Hindu Kush called chakra are in line. And we begin by breathing out through our mouth, and we pull the stomach in. Now relax the stomach and breathe into the nose. Moja. Use the breath to become more calm. Breathe out. Relax and breathe in through the mouth, through the nose. Mbili. And now we breathe out. And then relax the stomach and breathe into the nose. Tatu. By doing this technique, we're using the full capacity of our lungs. Should already start to feel more centered and calm. And 3 is the spiritual number for beginnings, for creation. It's a very powerful quantity to be focusing upon. Now, I begin with the rest of the ritual. So, I'll share my screen in Dugu. There we go. Let me know when you can see it. Okay. Beautiful. So, it's called Mabadiliko ya Nishati in Kiswahili. All of it is in Kiswahili, most of it. Some of it is in Kemetic terms, but everything is translated in, you have translations of English, because not only is it our ritual, and Pan-African Congress movement is encouraging us and believes in our own daily practices to live our culture, but it's also a teaching exercise for us to understand what we're doing and feel more comfortable with it. So I'll continue. Here's this bit that is in English. To change the energy or the vibration, we now thank the powers, to ask that we have a closer connection with them and that they assist us in manifesting our objectives. They are us and we are them. In order to do that and to have that, change that vibration, that nishati or energy, I'm going to play this triangle chime, which is 3 sides. Again, that powerful geometric symbol and quantity. I'm going to play it 3 times. And as we do, allow the energy and the vibration to go over you, around you, and through you. And by that, you become more in resonance with wherever you may be. And then we are giving up our energy, and that's the libation. That's the kind of libation where we're giving up our energy, we're offering our energy. And as you let that vibration resonate through you, you allow that to open up your consciousness in your third eye, and thereby we become one with each other wherever we are in the world, because we are one vibration in physical form aspects of the Creator. So I'll begin and I'll count to keep time. Moja. Mbili. Tatu. Now continuing. So this is the call and response. So I'll speak and make the invocation, and then we all speak the manifestation together. This is Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja, which means we are one, or we are the same thing. A very powerful affirmation and understanding that we should all meditate upon. So I'll begin here at the top. Ninaomba ya maomba awote. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Ninaomba ya nebacha. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. They call upon one of the Lawa of the Budon tradition. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya mamiwata. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Then we go back to the Kemetic principles and powers. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya shu. Sisi ni Kitu Kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Tefnut. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Nut. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. We'll go on to the Pautnataru, which in Kemetic means the tree of life, a spiritual science to bring the human being and their psyche into oneness with all things, and thereby, as they're being in control of their psyche and their emotions and their physical being, they bring the rest of all creation and all existence into balance. Start at the lowest vibration, going to the highest. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Geb. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Again, it's an understanding that these things are within us, they're not outside of us. Sisini Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Ao Set. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. So we're making invocation to call these powers, call them out from within us into our conscious being. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Sebek. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Heteru. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. And you notice that we're not begging, we're calling upon, we're asking for the requesting, but it's not something to come and save us, it's something that we are. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Haru. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Herakuti. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Maat. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Saka. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Tahuti. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Alsa. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaamba Kanunina Nguvu Ya Amen. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. And now, as we've already called upon the first ancestor, Wote, the All, now we can call upon those ancestors in our direct bloodline. So I'll begin. Ninaomba Mami Yangu, my mother, Ujume Kelly. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Ninaomba Iselin Rattigan.
Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaomba Bibi Yangu, my grandmother, Ketera Reed. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Ninaomba grandfather Sylvester Rattigan, grandmother Louise Hines.
Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Duke, is there any else in your bloodline you wish to call?
Yeah, Ninaomba great grandfather John Rattigan, great grandmother Ruth James.
Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Okay, so now we can go on, unless there's anybody else you wish to call? No? Now we can go on to those ancestors who are not in our direct bloodline, but have given of their time, their efforts, their resources, and their very lives for our people. Nina Amba, Mze, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Ninaomba Sam Sharp.
Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaomba Waze Amy Ashford Garvey na Amy Jacques Garvey. Sisini Kitu
Sisini
Kamoja.
Kitu Kamoja. Nina Omba, her brother Doggy, brother Tagel, and sister Jan.
Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kamoja.
Nina Omba, Mzee, Marcus Garvey Jr. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Nina Omba, Sheikh Amadou Bamba, and Helen Suturi Jata.
Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Nina Omba, Mzee, Lela Africa, na Ishakamusa Barishanga, na John Henry Clark, na Dale Jones. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. And now, is there anybody else you wish to call upon? Dugu?
No, it's fine.
Okay, so there we could go on those ancestors who we don't always know their individual names, but they gave their tremendous legacy for us to learn and to follow. First of all, those who fought and died in Arab enslavement, European enslavement, colonialism, and neo-colonialism. Nina Baba Babuya Mangamazi. Sisini Kitu
Kamoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Gula Vita, those who fought in the Gula Wars. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaomba Mababuya Asian Revolution. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaomba Mababuya Watu ya Kori, na Papua New Guinea, na West Papua, na Dravidians. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaomba Mababuya APLA, na SWAPO, na Freedom and Land Party, na Black Panthers. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninaomba Mababuya Watu ya San, na Twa, na Hutu. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. Ninawaomba wanaoishi ambao watatetea sisi, na wale mababu ambao bado hawajazaliwa. Sisini Kitu Kamoja. And we end on the words of power and affirmation that we say with intent and energy. Let's follow after me. Nguvu zote.
Nguvu zote.
Kwa watu wetu.
Kwa watu wetu.
Mapenzi ya wote.
Mapenzi ya wote.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Hakuna mwanzo.
Hakuna mwanzo.
Na hakuna mwisho.
Na hakuna mwisho.
And then in Kemetian, Anuk Amen.
Anuk Amen.
Which all means, all parts are people. The will of the all is our will. There is no beginning and there is no end. I am. Amen. Asante sana jamaa.
Yeah, asante sana. Ndugu Imani.
Karibu. You're welcome.
Okay, greetings everybody again, and we'd like to now go and look at the topic for today, which is the we're looking at the African Continental Trade Area.
And Dugu, I will join the Jamaa and yourselves back at the end to close.
Okay, right.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Asante.
Okay, asante. Right, let me. Yep. And so we were supposed to have a few guests. Some of them are running a bit late or having technical difficulties. So in the meanwhile, while they're trying to get in, I'll just continue with the topic for today. I will be sharing let me see if I can share it, a PowerPoint with you. Let me enlarge that a bit. Slideshow. Yep. Hold on, I'm not sure. Something. Okay. Okay, let me just enlarge that again. Right, yeah, that's better. As you can see, today is the Continental Free Trade Area. Now, I'm sure some of you, quite a few of you, would be aware that on the 1st of January, the official launching of the African Continental Free Trade Area took place. Now, what was ironic about that? Yeah, and by the way, we are looking at the world's largest free trade area. You know, the world's largest. So that says something. So what was also ironic, it was on the same day that the United Kingdom officially left the European Union. So I don't know what that is saying. But anyway, we are here to concentrate on Africa, and it's about time. That's something that's been talked about way back from the days of Kwame Nkrumah. In fact, we can see that the Organization of Africa Unity in 1963 was set up to bring something about like this. So it's good to see that progress has been made, and at last such a body has been launched, because Africa truly needs a trading area like this, because as we know, the trading between African countries is minimal, you know, and this is just a map to show you some of the riches of Africa that at the moment, it could be iron, it could be crude oil, coffee, everything is exported as primary product. Almost no processing or manufacturing at the moment takes place on the African continent. So we can see that in terms of value added, very little is realized by African nations. Those are all realized by a nation outside who does the processing, the manufacturing, and re-export all that back onto the continent. So hopefully with this free trade area, we will begin to see a rise in the level of manufacturing and processing taking place on the African continent. Now, as we say, because the UK left the European Union, the European Union has been weakened somewhat, because when we think about it, the UK was maybe the second largest economy in terms of what was in the European Union, and also it paid in billions. So we can see that has shaken the European Union, you know, to quite an extent. But as we are concentrated now as if African Continental Free Trade Area, hopefully we will see a situation where it will go from strength to strength. It should have actually been launched say the middle of last year, but as we know, due to this pandemic, things had to be put back. If we look what is in competition with, here we have the Africa. So the African Continental Free Trade Area is concentrated here, of course. We also have the North American Trading Area, which consists of Mexico, the United States, and Canada, and also the area, the trading bloc in South America. We also have the small bloc of the CARICOM and Central America. And here is the European Union. And we also have the Commonwealth of the former Soviet states have come together into an economic bloc. And of course, we have the Far East, India, and Oceania, consists of Australia, New Zealand, and so forth. So that is what Africa is up against. Now we are looking at a market that, you know, has a population of up to 1.3 billion people. So in terms of population, that's rivaling the population of India and China, which is of similar population. And we are looking at a combined GDP of some $3 trillion, a combined African trading bloc. Now, that's about the size of the GDP of India or of the UK. So we can see it is quite substantial. And of course, we're going to get a situation where a lot of people of the nation is going to be attracted and going to be trying to sell and maneuver within this market. Now, to date, it has been signed by 54 out of the 55 African member states. For whatever reason, Eritrea has not yet joined. But I think it's just a matter of time before we will see Eritrea entering this free trade zone. And up to date, about 34 countries have actually ratified this agreement, meaning that they're ready to go. So all those trading with all the exemptions will apply to those 34 countries. It's a shame that more haven't ratified, but I'm sure with time, when they see the benefit, a lot more will be coming on board. Now, as I said, the internal trade between African countries is abysmal, to say, absolutely abysmal. It is easier for African countries to trade, say, with the European Union, North America, China, than it is for them to trade with each other. Now, what are some of the reasons for this? We know in Africa lacks such things as infrastructure. So hence, trading is difficult. You know, again, border controls. We have a ridiculous situation that to cross the border from one country to another, it could take you days because of the bureaucracy that's present. And that's something that this trade area will hopefully, those will be wiped away. You can look at some figures here that in 2017, the inter-African trade, means African country trading and exporting to each other, was 16.6%. Now let's compare that to the European Union, which is 68%, or the Asian bloc, which is 59%. We can then, that tells us a lot. That tells us why Africa, in terms of economically, is in the state it's in, because 16% is ridiculously low. Now, one of the things that this trade area will do is to eliminate tariffs. It says the agreement will work towards Continental Custom Union, which is well needed. Elimination of up to 90% of tariffs, aiding the movement of capital and people between countries, facilitate external investment, and reduce non-tariff barriers. For examples, the time taken to pass through customs. So there we can see that, you know, that there's a situation there that now this trading bloc is in operation. Africa can only, and I say only, move from strength to strength. You know, now the other thing that is likely to happen is they're saying it could increase trade by up to 50%. Now, those are figures given by the United Nations, because it actually says here, African Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to increase trade by over 50%, and that's according to the United Nations, while the World Bank suggests that the agreement could mean adding up to 76 million in income to the rest of the world. So what that means is that Africa has now become one of the major players in terms of world trade and world economies. And now, obviously, started on the 1st of January, there's going to be hurdles. Now, despite we know there's going to be benefits, but there's going to be obstacle. We know there's going to be teething, or what we could say teething problem in getting this thing off the ground. Just trying to get the other slide up. Oh. This, hold on a bit, the screen's just froze on me. Okay. Now, what are the expected hurdles? One, like a lot of modern and efficient infrastructure. We know Africa, if we look all over Africa, we can see there's a race to build infrastructure. Infrastructure is going up fast. So, yes, it's a negative at the moment, but in the next 10, 20 years' time, the infrastructure will be there to facilitate all the trade that would be needed. The other thing is unclear information about processes. The other one is barriers to women-led businesses. Now, why is that there? Because we know that a lot of the trading in Africa is actually done by women, especially a situation where you're getting a lot of agriculture trading where borders need to get to be, borders need to be crossed. And we know that's been a tremendous difficulty over the time, which has really set Africa back. The other hurdle, of course, is going to be the COVID-19. And they're saying, the experts are saying that if we're not careful, COVID could actually reverse by years some of the gains Africa has made. I hope that that won't be the situation. And the other thing is fear of large economic gain made in diverse economies will be unequally distributed. What are they saying by that? They're saying that at the moment, if we look at the various countries in Africa, we can see they're all at different stages in their economic development. If we look at, say, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, those are the big movers. So undoubtedly, they will benefit. There'll be a great benefiting for them in the short term. But other countries, we know it will take them time. But, of course, the way to move on this, if you remember when the European Union was set up and countries such as Spain and Portugal and Greece was coming in, and of course, there was at a different economic level. So what happened? The larger countries poured money to invest in infrastructure to bring those countries up to par. And I have no doubt the same kind of things will be done in Africa. Now, the next one we need to look at, regardless of all the obstacle that undoubtedly will be faced, regardless, forward momentum has to take place, because Africa needs to remove itself away from colonial economic models, perpetually being, and stop being an exporter of only primary commodities for processing elsewhere. And instead, Africa needs to become an economic powerhouse, one of the economic powerhouse of the world. And eventually, it will become the economic powerhouse of the world. And why is that? Because the raw materials that's needed to propel any economy, most of it is to be found right there on the continent of Africa. So once this trading bloc can really get its act together and really start the manufacturing and the processing plants in Africa. We heard of the rise of China, how China within 30 years worked an economic miracle. I say the same thing is on the cards for Africa. And it will take Africa less time, much less time than China did to become an economic powerhouse. But one of the things we have to bear in mind, the question we got to ask, is China, the EU, all the other trading blocs, are they going to sit by and see Africa becoming this superpower? So that's something, I'll come back to that later, but that's something we have to keep in mind. So let me minimize that and take that out. Yeah, so that's something that we have to bear in mind. We can see we looked at some of the aspects of the Africa Free Trade Zone. And we can see that, I would say, kudos to them for getting their act together finally. It took a very, very long time, but it's here. It started on the 1st of January. Now, the next stage is to look at situations, because I want to play you something, because there was a question asked. We know China is within. China has a lot of things invested in Africa. China is the country that's virtually building the infrastructure of Africa. We have AFRICOM. That is where the United States have gone around Africa setting up military bases. We have that within Africa. So back to the question I asked, what do we think the reaction of the other economic trading blocks will be. Because let's face it, up until this point in time, Africa has just been a reservoir of resources where they go, they get their primary products, which is then shipped out to their various economies, which is then manufactured and taking place, the process is then taking place, the real value added process is then done within, outside of Africa. And as we know, they become enriched in that, and then Africa have to turn around and buy back those goods. So with the state of affairs now changing, and Africa can see itself in a few years manufacturing their own goods and processing their own products, what are some of the things, what are some of the fears that we have got to come to grip with? What are some of the things that we think, or some of the questions we should be asking of, say, the EU? Because we can see the way France, for example, moves in Africa. It moves in a very, very aggressive way and a very condescending way. We can see China is developing a similar type of mindset where it feels itself entitled to certain things on the African continent. So how can African countries protect this free trade area? Because I have no doubt that there will be attempts to sabotage it. Because let's face it, if Africa rises, somebody else has to go down. So what I want to do now, I actually want to play you a question that was asked to one of the, I think it's one of the ministers within this free African Free Continental Trade Zone area. And the question was specifically asked around China and China's intent or China's approach. But in answering the question, he also bring in America and the European Union. And he endeavors to say how Africa would approach this. So let me play that for you now.
In general, before I talk specifically about the FCFTA, as you know, Africa major trading partners today are mainly China, the EU, the European Union, and the US, and then others follow. Secondly, the pattern of that relationship is that Africa is importing more than it is exporting to those trading partners. And even going specifically, when you look at what Africa is exporting to those countries, is mainly commodity products or raw materials, and we are importing finished products. And this has a huge implication on our balance of payment or our trade balance, because we are trading with them low value commodities, which are even losing the value, more value due to COVID-19 pandemic. And we have to spend a lot in importing our necessary products for our consumption. So what I can say is that the trading relationship currently being enjoyed by the business in Africa is not sustainable. The AFCFTA is aimed at reversing the situation. We want to increase intra-African trade. We want to add value to our commodities before we export them. And we also want to attract investors or investment from all over the world. from China, from US, from Europe, from all parts of the world, but also increasing investment from within Africa. How does Africa-China relationship affect the FCFTA? I would say that there is no side effects to any relationship with a third party, because the FCFTA is created in a way that the rules will protect the internal market. As you all know, when you create a free trade area, it's a preferential trade between members of that free trade area. African countries will be able to trade amongst themselves in better conditions as they trade with the rest of the world. African Continental Free Trade Area has got rules of origin. And the rules of origin provide that products that are wholly produced in Africa will enjoy preferences when they are exported to other African countries. And products that are produced in Africa using non-originating materials, using materials from outside Africa, will also be subjected to a number of conditions. So, which means that what we can say as a sustainable relation with the rest of the world is that we are attracting investors who will come, invest in Africa, create jobs, add value to our raw materials, and then assist Africa to export finished products that will improve our trade balance. And this will apply to Europe, this will apply to China, and this will apply to the US and many other major trading partners with Africa. Secondly, within the provisions of AFCFTA, we have to ensure that there is no transshipment. I'm talking about transshipment of product that will be imported. Let's say, for example, major countries are importing from China in Africa. The AFCFTA rules will not allow countries to import from China and re-export within Africa on the terms that African products will be traded in Africa. So any product that will be imported from China will have to be subjected to tariffs. It will not enjoy preferential trade within AFCFTA. Only products that are produced within Africa using Africa raw materials will enjoy, also satisfying a number of conditions of rules of origin, will enjoy the AFCFTA market. I think that's the way.
Okay, so hopefully you heard that loud and clear. So you can see, yes, in terms of how they would deal with the various trading blocks, we can see that that's been very, very well thought out. Now, one of the things I want to look at now is terms of historically how, because remember back when Garvey was setting up his Black Star Line, part of it was about trade. You know, so part of it was about trading with Africa, the diaspora, trading with our brothers and sisters on the continent. And I think we should still be mindful of that. Yes, this particular trading area says the African Continental Free Trade Area, which means countries in Africa trading amongst themselves. But remember, the AU have designated the diaspora as the 6th region. So to me, this is a great opportunity for people within the diaspora to begin, if they haven't already, trading with Africa in a meaningful way, and also to think about, as you said, investing, because part of the things that they're very much crying out for is for the diaspora to come and invest in Africa. Point being, we've seen that in 2020, how Ghana, for example, has reached out to the diaspora with the year of return. I don't think the year of return was just a case of going to visit Africa to see where your ancestors come from. It is also an encouragement for diasporans, Africans. I'm talking about the millions of us in the Caribbean, in the North, South, Central America, in Europe, to come and start some kind of meaningful business in Africa. And I was heartened to see recently direct flights have begun between Ghana and Jamaica and Nigeria and Jamaica. Now, Jamaica is just serving as a hub in the Caribbean for other islands, because once those direct flight land in Jamaica, there's no doubt that people are making their way from other islands within the Caribbean to Jamaica to get on those flights, that they can have a trouble-free flight to Africa, not having to go through America and get harassed, not having to go through Europe and get harassed. You can go direct to the motherland. So I think this is a opportunity for people in the diaspora who have always wanted to do some kind of trade in Africa, for this to encourage them, this is like a kickstart to them, because we're looking at a trading block of 1.3 billion people. 1.3 billion people need servicing, So we know others are going to be running in. As I said, the Chinese are there already, the Europeans. One of the reasons when Britain broke away from the EU and officially left the EU on the 1st of January of this year, even before then, we saw Boris Johnson took a trip around Africa. Last year, we had the Africa-British Trade Commission, something like that, because we know that Britain now is eager to do business on the continent. Is eager to start bringing up the ghost of the Commonwealth, which it has been trying to do, reaching out to country and say, let's rekindle this dead horse called the British Commonwealth. And of course, they would expect to be the head of it and to be leading the way. But I think times have changed. And yes, that will be tried, but I think times have changed and things has moved on. And this will give the countries in Africa that advantage. And why do they have an advantage? They have an advantage because the very material that's needed to build any industrial complex lies beneath their feet. So hence, what do we see? How do we see the future? How do we see it going forward? Because in order to industrialize at the moment, I'm hearing the voices saying Africa needs outside skills in order to develop this infrastructure that's needed for them to realize their gold. But when we say outside, we got to remember that there's millions and millions of Africans in the diaspora who holds these skills. Whatever Africa needs, Africans hold those skills. So I think it's beholden on African people to search their conscience and to say, now, Africa is at a stage where it needs the geologists, it needs those oil engineers, it needs the production engineers, the physicists, the chemists, you know, all the skill engineers, all the medical skills, it needs those. And before non-Africans start running down there to take up those positions, I think it's beholden on Africans in the diaspora to really start to ask themselves a question. What role, and the question should be, what role can I play in the advancement and development of Africa? That's something we need to say to ourselves. And the sixth region, as I mentioned, is very important because within, say, the Caribbean, I mean, take for instance, I was listening to a show the other night, and there was a brother from Barbados, and he said Barbados needed nurses. There was a shortage of nurses in Barbados, for example. In the past, they would have just gone to the United States or come to the UK or anywhere else, and it would have been, Europeans would have gone down and filled those positions. But what they did, they reached out. In this case, it was to Ghana. And they were then able to fulfill a lot of the positions they wanted. But the question was raised straight away. How can Ghana be sending nurses to Barbados? Don't Ghana need those nurses for themselves? Well, the difference is, and I knew this happened in Jamaica a few years back, those countries actually trained nurses, which he said Barbados is not yet in a position to train their own nurses. So what I'm saying, isn't it heartening to see, you know, a direct link between the diasporans, we in here in the diasporas, and our brothers and sisters on the continent, and we are working together in such a way that we can cut out the others, and we are the ones that's taking up these positions, you know. So as Africa now has come together in a trading bloc, and as Africa moves from strength to strength, I think that which is happening in Caribbean islands, we should see a lot more intertrade happening between, say, for instance, the Caribbean and the mainland of Africa. When we look at other places, it becomes a bit more complicated. Say, for instance, we look at the United States. You're probably looking at 40 to 50 million Africans within the borders of the United States alone. But what is the difference, say, between what's going on in the United States and, say, what's going on in Jamaica, Barbados and stuff? We all know the difference is that Jamaica, Barbados are run by people that look like the population. Whereas within America, yes, they're there in vast numbers, but in terms of control, they have very, very little say. So even if the African voices in America said we want a lot more input, a lot more trade on the African continent, they are not in the position to make those things happen or direct their energies that way. Whereas the Caribbean, especially the block of CARICOM, that's something major that can be done right now. So therefore, Garvey's dream, when he set up the Black Star Line, that there should be trading between Africa and the diaspora, is one step closer. You know, it's a one step closer. Now let's focus now on the continent itself. As we know, 55 states. We're told Eritrea has not yet signed up to it, but the other 54 has. Out of those 54, 34 has ratified this agreement. So one of the things that I think looking at Africa, what has to be done, there has to be a situation where Africa begins to tighten itself against these outsized influences. Because if we look right across Africa now, we can see a number of conflicts taking place, which is detrimental for a free trading area. And we can see a lot of those conflicts are being fueled by outside forces in an attempt to keep the African continent destabilized. Because once it's destabilized, then you have a situation where the old colonial way still have sway. What do I mean by that? I mean by, for example, if we look at Ghana, the Ivory Coast, between them, they probably produce 90% of the world's cocoa. And yet, between them, they do not dictate the price. They do not set the price. The price is the commodities prices are set on markets here in London or in New York, say. If we look at the Congo, for example, probably the richest country in Africa in terms of potential and mineral wealth, we can see that there has been a perpetual conflict. Since so-called independence, I don't think it's had one day of peace without there being some kind of conflict going on. And when we look down there, we can see everybody's down there, stirring and keeping this destabilization going. So for Africa to truly realize its potential, to be able to trade with itself, one of the first things it has to concentrate on is, like I'm saying, tightening itself and closing its borders and being more careful who it does business with and who it lets in. Because without that situation happening where these conflicts are being resolved, you will then get a situation where such a trading area, the potential is enormous, but it will never really realize its potential because it will be too busy focusing. Its energies will be diverted elsewhere. Therefore, the question is, who in Africa, or where in Africa do we think we can see these solutions coming about? If we look at the AU, for example, here's a body that all African countries belong to. And like the famous phrase, I don't want to mention the name because I know a lot of the sayings accredited to this person were actually plagiarized. So the famous saying that says "Jaw Jaw" rather than "War War" has to begin to apply. Because if we look at, say, Europe after the Second World War, when Europe was in a state of devastation, we quickly had France and Germany coming to a realization that we cannot carry on like this. And then further down the road, another few countries came on board, and hence the beginnings of the European Union was born with the European Economic Community. You see, they came to the realization for them to really prosper, this constant conflict amongst each other, had to stop. There had to be mechanisms put into place where they can solve their differences. And hence, that was the case. Likewise, in the case of Africa, we are seeing all these conflicts going on, which would devastate any attempt for Africa coming together as trading blocs. And one of the things that has to be done is for African leaders to be patriotic enough. Why do I start off with patriotism? Because if you're a patriot and love your country, you would have its interests at heart. You would not be investing your monies overseas. They have to begin to become more patriot and start looking inwards. You would not be going abroad for medical treatment when you have doctors and nurses in your country. So what I'm trying to say, the mindset has to change. And it is noticeable when we talk about African leaders. A few names come to the fore who are setting examples. And if only the other leaders was to follow in their footsteps, I then think that this African Continental Free Trade Area will soon become the superpower that it's set to be. It will soon become the superpower that is set to be. The other thing that was mentioned in the PowerPoint was the situation of COVID. And it said there that COVID is in danger of setting Africa's progress back by years. Again, I would plead to a lot of these African leaders and the AU to please be independent of thought. There's only one leader in Africa I see so far, and that is the leader of Tanzania, who is exhibiting that independence of mind. He's not just running along with what the West is saying. He's thinking outside of the box. He's looking what's best for his people and his country. And when things was taken into consideration, of course, the conclusion came about that what is best for this country is for us to solve this problem, this virus problem, our way. Because at the moment, what we see, these vaccines, the attempt to vaccinate everybody. I know on this forum we have touched on this several times. So forgive me for touching into it again, but when again you look at the situation in Africa, why is there this massive attempt to vaccinate everybody? There was a video going around with a Zambian minister, and he hit the nail right on the head by saying, these vaccines are coming in. History have taught us some bitter lessons. So why is it that we are just ready to accept these and inject them into our bodies without first verifying that they're not harmful to us? So he went on to say, until he was speaking in this case of Zambia, their scientists have time to analyze these vaccines, to, as the words he used, to dissect it, look at its constituent parts, find out what's actually in it in terms of what's the potential danger to their population. No African should be taking it. I asked the question before, do we think Europe, China, the other trading blocs are going to watch Africa knock them off their perch? God, that's inevitably what would happen. If Africa realizes potential with this African free trading area, it will become the preeminent trading area in the world without question. Without any question. So are they going to sit back and say, no problem, we are ready to trade with you on a level playing field? History, as somebody says, our greatest teacher. And history has taught us, when we are dealing with certain people, to be always on our guard. That's what history has taught us. And I only hope and pray that outside of Tanzania, the other leaders are watching what Tanzania is doing, watching that freedom of thought that their leader is exhibiting, and will take that on board for themselves and their own people in their own various countries. Because as Africa move along into this free trade area, and countries begin to trade with each other, hence tariffs are going. Hence, you know, the freedom to move across borders, hence the freedom to do business. And as those economy begins to grow, right? And as we see the fallout in places like Europe and China and North America, by fallout I mean all those jobs that was dependent on, say for instance, iron ore being dug out, put on a ship, shipped to them, they process it, then ship the finished product back. Once those avenues begin to reduce, right, what do we think the situation is going to be? So, Nkrumah talked about when he and Selassie set up the OAU in 1963, they talked about the joint command, you know, an African army. Because if you cannot protect your gains, what's the point? So that's something that I think Africa need to concentrate on, you know, is getting itself into a defensive state when it can protect its gain. If we look at somewhere like Djibouti, they're up in the Horn of Africa. You have the French Navy base there, have a base there. The Chinese Navy have a base there. The Americans are there. The British are there. Everybody is there. I mention again AFRICOM. Why was America so keen to be setting up bases all over Africa? In the pretense those bases are to fight what they say, terrorists. Think about it this way. You are growing economically as an economic power. Your economic growth now becomes a economic threat to places like the EU, to places like China, to places like India, to places like North America. You now become an economic threat. What's to stop the Americans using those bases to take any kind of action they like within Africa in order to retard that economic progress that they see taking place? What's to stop China using its military might from its bases in Djibouti to try to retard that African economic growth? What I'm saying, if you build your house on sand, don't be surprised if it gets washed away. You know, don't be surprised if you get washed away if you build your house on sand. And to me at the moment, until I see otherwise, I have no alternative but to think this way, right? I have no alternative but to think this way. Another lesson that we could learn a lot from in terms of looking at the African continent is somewhere like Japan. When there was an attempt to colonize and dominate Japan and they fought it off, what did the Japanese realize they had to do in order to protect their sovereignty? One of the things the Japanese said, we have to industrialize, and we have to industrialize fast. So what they did And we're talking about now late 19th century, 1890s, early 1900s, was to send many of their young people away to learn key skills. And once those skills have acquired, to return with them and to use them strategically to develop, to get certain industries developed. We saw the same thing China have done, quite recently. China's done the same thing. Now, what I'm seeing in Africa is that those key skills are being acquired by Africans all over the place. In fact, when we look at the United States, for example, we can see some of the most innovative things that have taken place. Who has been behind it? Who was the key person that brought it to realization? The African mind. The African mind. I'm only talking to you today on this internet because there was a brother from Ghana that cracked the puzzle of how to get fiber optics working properly. They've been trying and failing, and he came along and cracked it. So hence you can push data down fiber optics and we can be here today. But who benefited the most from that? The very computers we have, the very telephones we have, who benefited from that? What society benefited from those? So what I'm trying to say, the African mind has built the Western societies. Because for whatever reason, we think the grass is always green on the other side. Now, it is time to start to apply the African mind on the continent of Africa. And believe me, if that is the case, within no time, Africa will be transformed. Now, I like to mention the name of Akon for the simple reason that, most people know him as a, R&B, some kind of rapper. And when he finally grew up and finally realized the potential of Africa, what did he do? He started to invest. And not only he started to encourage others to. As he had a famous phrase when he spoke to other African Americans, that America was never built for you. You will never will be accepted there. Your best bet is to look to Africa to apply your talents. And that goes the same to Africans elsewhere. The Caribbean, to me, holds a unique position for the simple reason that most of the islands of the Caribbean, vast majority, are run by us. So to me, the Caribbean is merely an extension of the African continent, in that we are the ones steering the ship. But when we look at places like the United States, I'm saying up to 50 million Africans there. But when it comes to hands-on power, when it comes to having the ability to do things, that's not the case. But the pool of talent that is there is enormous. Remember when Mussolini invaded Ethiopia and Africans in the diaspora rose up, it was African brothers from America who was trained at Tuskegee that went to Ethiopia, founded an air force that was able to run Mussolini and his other fascists out of Ethiopia. And there was the beginning of Ethiopian Airlines, the oldest airlines on the continent of Africa, was started by those American pilot from the Tuskegee Institute who went over to fight the Italian fascists, helping Ethiopia to keep its independence. So what I'm saying, the talent is there to build Africa, to build the infrastructure. At the moment, China is the one doing it. And as we know, China is in there. And whoever is coming up against Africa, they are going to try be whatever in their armory to try and hold it back, because we can see colonialism, slavery, neocolonialism. What was that all about? It was all about keeping Africa down. Do not let it realize its potential, because if it does, it will be the preeminent power in the world. So hence, we had a situation left behind by colonialism where the borders that was drafted in the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885 was the very borders that on independence all African country inherited. And those borders was deliberately done in that way so that it would be difficult for Africa to succeed. That is why, as far back as Marcus Messiah Garvey have always referred to Africa as one entity. Yes, we know it's 55 states, but why a lot of people always refer to it as an entity, as Africa, because it's only as one entity that it will realize its power. Otherwise, 55 fragmented states trying to all get along together in that way is not going to work. So kudos to Garvey, and was taken up by Nkrumah and others who saw the need. As Nkrumah says, it's pointless Ghana getting independence if we are to stand alone. No, we have to be part of the United States of Africa. And I think that's the mindset we all have to adopt with this free trade area. The UK left the European Union. One of the reasons it gave for leaving the European Union was that many within that union wanted to see a United States of Europe, which wasn't something that they wanted to go along with. Now, I would say the opposite applied to Africa. It should be in the interest of all Africans on the continent and in the diaspora to see a United States of Africa. And hopefully, with the launching of this Africa Continental Free Trade Area, it's a step forward to that realization. Now, another problem exists, and it's this problem, that in the northern part of Africa, also known as the Maghreb area, you have a situation where those countries, apart from being members of the African Union are also members of the Arab League. So how is Africa going to deal with that? Because I do not think a United States of Africa, they would see it in their interests. Well, to me, if the rest of Africa, I hate the term, so I'm not going to use it. You know, I hate the term, I'm not going to use it, because to me, to use it is to buy into this, is to buy into, how can I put it? It's to buy into this brainwashing. That's a lot of. But the countries outside then, of the Maghreb region, if they was to come together in such a way that trade and the communication between them becomes so strong, then those countries in the north would have no choice but either to join in, or just the power of the rest of Africa would reclaim them back into the African fold. You know, to me, that would be the case. But anyway, in the meanwhile, all I would say is that a start has been made. You know, it took a long time, but a start has been made. And I think we in the diaspora has a great, great role to play within this. Also. So as time go by and we see what transpire, and we see more African created companies, institutions begin to take footholds in Africa, because to me, that's got to happen. Because right now, if we look at the African continent and see who are the players that stand to gain the most from this African continental free trade zone, who are the players that's ready to move, we can see that very, very few of them are Africans. Very few of them are Africans. There's a company, I think it's based in Nigeria, called Jumia. And it's been called the Amazon of Africa. When I first came across Jumia, the fact that it was said it was based in Nigeria, and so I thought it was an African company, only to find out it is not an African company. It was founded, I think, by 2 Frenchmen. But the way they put the company across, it gave that impression. They are ready to roll. They are African Continental Free Flow Zone is right up their street. They're going to take massive advantage, and they're going to do brilliant out of it. Right? If we look at the largest supermarket in Africa, I think it's Europeans, again, based in South Africa, I forgot the name of it, that runs it. Again, this is right down their street. Now they can expand. So what I'm trying to say, where the African Institute and companies that's ready to take benefit and get the benefit of these things. That's some of the things we got to ask ourselves, or we got to bear in mind. That yes, there's a massive 1.3 billion market, 3 trillion GDP, but it's pointless if the same people that's been beating us down and fighting us down for years are the same people that's end up going to get the most out of it. So I think Africans, people everywhere, we need to wake up. When we talk about investing, let's invest our ideas, let's invest our money, let's invest our efforts within the African continent, right? Because we are part of it. I see a few questions and points coming up, so I'm going to deal with them in a very short while. I'll be looking at some of them. The other thing that we have got to realize and take into consideration is that the continent of Africa there and the diaspora there need to be a more closer coming together. Why do I say that? Because if we look around us, we can say, yes, a lot more people are going to Africa now. A lot more people are taking an interest and wanting to find about their roots. But considering the population of Africans outside of Africa, it is minuscule. It is so small that in terms of an economic indicator, it is not registering yet. So why am I saying that? I'm saying that in order to take advantage of this, more and more Africans, and I use the word Africans, I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, but why does he keep saying Africans? I'm confused because I thought Africans, look, as Peter Tosh says, no matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man or black woman, you're an African. So yes, you might call yourself Jamaican or Barbadian or Brazilian or, I don't know, Bahamian or whatever you call yourself. As far as I'm concerned, you're still an African. That's why I'm using that term to cover all. We're an Africans first. To me, there need to be a growing awareness and a growing trend of people when they travel to make Africa a priority. I know right now we're in lockdown, so most of us not going anywhere. But I can imagine when this lockdown ends and people are now have the ability to travel, there'll be a mass rush of people saying, look, man, I need to just travel, I need to go somewhere, I need to take. And unfortunately, places like Spain, Portugal, Canary Islands, France, United States, they're going to get the bulk of African people going there and spending their money and helping to boost the economy. Why not just change our mindset and say, no, I want to take a break, I'm going to Africa. We know over the years it has been made difficult because you might say, well, look, I can fly to Spain or go down to the Canary Islands for less than £100. The cheapest ticket I'm going to get to Africa is £500-600. Now, as the saying goes, if there's no demand, then there's no service. So business is business. And if people see that there's a mass demand of people going to Africa, those services will suddenly appear. You will get more charter. After this, I think it was Roots, Alex Haley put Gambia on the map of routes, and a lot of people started to make their way down into the Gambia. Gambia became a major tourist destination, and a number of charter companies sprang up during flights to the Gambia because, it gained that reputation of being somewhere you could go into Africa for relatively a reasonable amount of money. You know, that's something that we have got to do. And I'm telling you, once you start to go on the continent, for those who hasn't been, I know I'm talking to a lot of people who has been, but if we was looking at it in percentage term, out of the diaspora, maybe you're looking at the 2-3% would have been back to Africa in any kind of capacity. So when I say we have a role to play in this free trade area, meaning that we have a role to help build it, because if we were to go and start spending our money and using the hotels and using the buses and using the restaurants and using that, that's money in that can only build, because we are part of it and we have got to do that. I'm going to look at a few of these points that's coming up. Let me see. Let me put that a bit bigger so everybody can see. And this is how can Africa assure that the benefits from more than the outside interests, such as the Arabs, who cannot. Let me see. Yeah. Sorry, my screen just freezing a bit. Let's see if we can unfreeze it. Yeah. How can African ensure that it benefits from this more than outside interests, such as the Arabs who control the north and the neo-colonialists who still control much of the raw material? Yes, I think I slightly touch on that. In order for us to assure that, like I'm saying, the Arabs who are in and also elsewhere, African Union, Arab League. So what is the situation? Because if you listen to the tape that I played earlier on, one of the things the brother's talking about, if things are brought into the African trade zone from outside, they'll be subjected to tariffs, because the whole idea of this free trade zone is to get things being processed and manufactured within it so it can be exported and moved around within. So if you're going to bring something from outside, say for instance some people bringing a consignment from China into Kenya, and once it's there, they think then they're going to just disperse it throughout the free trade zone. It says no, they're going to, those goods will be subjected to tariff in order not to kill the internal market. So if that's the case, I can see a problem in terms of with the Arab North African countries. And I don't know how that problem is going to be solved, because I can see a situation where, because they say they're part of the Arab League, they should be exempt. So anything made, say, within other Arab countries outside of Africa should be able to come in. So that's something that I can see a problem springing up there. The other one, in terms of neocolonialism, the neocolonialists who still control the raw material. That's what I hit on before. The prices of these raw material, all these commodities, the major world commodity market lies in London. That's where the price of your copper, your tin, your zinc, your aluminium, your whatever is determined. So the producer of those materials has no say in terms of what the price should be. So hopefully with this African, with the African continental trade area, in terms of through the AU, hopefully Africa can begin to put itself in a position where they said, right, we're going to build our own commodity market right here. So when anything is dug out of the soil or grown in Africa, we will then dictate, especially things like, because some of the things Africa is so preeminent in, like cobalt and the coltan, it's hard to produce anywhere else. So if they says we will determine the price, that's the way to go. And I know voices are saying, but how can they do that? They're not in a position to do that. Cast your mind back, or I'm sure in politics lessons or history lessons, you would have come across OPEC. The thing about OPEC. Up until OPEC was formed, oil was dirt cheap because the West was basically doing the same. They determined the price of oil, and they was determining that it was so low. So the oil producers was hardly earning anything from their oil. So what did they do? All the major oil producers got together, created OPEC, and then they determined the price that if you want our oil, this is what you have to pay us. I know it almost led to World War III, because I do think it was under Jimmy Carter presidency that he was on the verge of invading a lot of those Middle Eastern countries that were predominant in OPEC. So you see, it's been done before, and it can be done again. If Africa gets itself in a position and they can all come together, they are strong enough to put themselves in a position where they can say, right, this is our commodity market. We'll dictate the price because we are the producers. And if you want this, this is what you have to pay for it. So hopefully, let me look at another point. Another point here is, and this is saying, what is the role of education in relation to the topic of discussion? Oh, good point. Education is crucial. That's why I said, if we look at Japan, how Japan managed to become an industrial powerhouse, education played a key role there, because what Japanese did, it saw, because the Western world had industrialized, they were now in such a dominant position that they went around the world just bullying everybody. So if you wanted to be stopped bullied, you had to also build your own industrial complexes, where then you could negotiate from a position of strength. So to me, there's education. There's two ways to look at education. One is just the academic stuff, just getting your people out there to acquire the skills that's required to build your economy. So if it's the civil engineers, the electronic engineers, the mechanical engineers, the builders, the medical professionals, whatever you need, get them trained up to that level that they can deliver that. And then there's education in the sense of getting de-brainwashed. Because we should never forget that when Africa went through the Mahaafa and people were kidnapped, ripped out from the soil of Africa and taken all over the place and put on ships and taken to the West, right? When colonialism of the 1884, 1885, when the carve-up of Africa began, right, a lot of miseducation took place. Now, that took place to the point where, on gaining so-called independence, how many African countries set up institutions dedicated to teaching their people the truth of what happened Very few. We can see Nkrumah did it. Nkrumah was overthrown, and all the institution Nkrumah set up for that purpose was systematically dismantled. You have a situation now that in many African countries, in the education system, history is not taught, or history in the sense of what happened to Africa over a period of time, that it is in the situation it found itself in, it is not taught. And it is not taught on the behest of those former colonial states or neo-colonialists who are of their mind. If you went down that road and started to teach them, it would only bring hatred, and we don't want that. That's water under the bridge. Let's move forward. Let's just not dwell on the past. And because that is said, that is why Africa is in the state it is. Because a lot of people are unaware of some of the atrocities and some of the things that took place until a lot of them leave the continent, come to the West, for example, meet up with brothers and sisters from the diaspora, and lo and behold, when they hear what's been said and hear what's been done, it's like, well, I wasn't taught that. I never knew that. So in terms of education, Africa needs to get itself in a situation where institution or through its universities, through its schools, they should be taught. You talk to any Jewish person and they'll tell you about the Holocaust. They'll even tell you about how the Jews was taken into slavery in Egypt 5,000 years ago. Right? So education plays a crucial part in that. The other point is, okay, please let us recall that the power lies within the African consciousness to reclaim who we are and what we have, and do what is necessary to secure us first and foremost. Support our African initiatives with confidence, get the required skills and self-sustainability. That's bang on. You see, that's what it's all about. It lies within us. If, when China began to, move the way it is aggressively, say it's going to modernize, it's going to industrialize, and it's going to, all Chinese in China and without China woke up to that possibility, woke up to that fact, and played their part, right? And played their part. I mentioned Japan again, the same thing. They all woke up to the fact and say, how can I fit in? What part can I play? Every single African man, woman, and child should be of the mindset now. What is my role? What part can I play? Not that there's too much water under the bridge. We're too different now. We are now our own people because 400 or 500 years has passed, so we are no longer Africans. Don't call me an African, right? It's all right for you to call me a Black American or a Black British or a Black whatever, but do not use the word African because too much time has passed. We are no longer the same people. My answer to that is wake up and smell the coffee. We're the same people. We are the same people. What is 400 or 500 years in the duration of our existence? Just a blip. So why let that little blip split us apart? We are the same people, right? And that's the thing we got to understand. We are the same people. So again, as the sister said, it's within. So listen to our inner self and act upon it. Right, let me see if there's any more. There's another point here. Let's have a look. Okay, I look forward to the day when Africa and the Caribbean trade amongst themselves, put their raw material to use themselves, and deal with the West on their terms. That's, you see, these are things that I like to hear, because that's what it's all about. And as far back as the 1920s, when Garvey put those ships together, that was the intention, get us trading amongst ourselves. And if Garvey wasn't sabotaged, you see, we got to ask ourselves this question. Africa is there, the Caribbean is there, all we want to do is trade. What's the harm in that? We just want to trade. What is the harm in that? Why is it then send alarm bells ringing in certain people's eye that we have to stop them at all costs? They must be stopped at all costs from coming together, reunited, and trading. That's what we almost ask ourselves. Right? So now we have a chance. They have tried, they can't stop us. The only people stopping us is us. You know, we're the only people stopping ourselves from making this a success. Well, as time joined to an end, all I've got to say, the first step has been taken. It is now a reality, the African Continental Free Trade Area. It is begun. It can only grow from strength to strength. The sixth region that the that the AU talks about and has put aside, it is time for this sixth region to wake up and begin to take part in this continental African free trade zone. It is time for Africans in the diaspora to begin to focus, make their focus be in Africa. And it is time for us to begin to think in a way that whatever little or much we can do to help Africa to realize its potential. And once its potential is realized, we're talking about the world preeminent trading bloc. It's already the world's largest trading bloc in terms of land mass and in terms of population and everything. 3 trillion at the moment for a continent the size of Africa is just a drop in the ocean. Like I said, 3 trillion is the size of the British economy, right? The United States economy, the last time I looked at one time it went up to 20 trillion, and it might have fallen back because of what's going on, but 20 trillion. And that's generated by what? Just over 300 million, 330 million people. So let's look at 1.3, 1.4 billion people, 30 million square miles of land, all the resources that you can ever need. And 3 trillion as a GDP is just a drop in the ocean. I read somewhere that by 2063, if Africa go and the way things are projected and everything's fall into place, in terms of GDP, it will become the largest in the world. So let us all make some effort and let's all play our role, because a strong Africa means a strong race. and a strong race means a strong Africa. So at this point, I'm bringing Ndugu Umani, who's back with me now, and we will end by Ndugu Umani changing the vibration for us. But just before he do that, just to say again, on behalf of the Pan-African Congress movement, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in each week. I just can't believe that the shutdown have carried on, because we started these sessions in March of last year, thinking that we'll only be doing them for a few weeks and then we'll be getting back to the Mama Art Center in London, where we were working out of and holding the meetings there. And such has been the support over the year, over the months, almost said years, over the month, it'll be years soon, but over the month. We are heartened by it, that people have tuned in every week in ever increasing numbers, and we are heartened by it. So that is why we are now dedicated to keep these sessions going, with or without COVID. And we are dedicated to bringing you topics like this and bringing you also speakers and panelists from all over the Pan-African world. You see me on my own today. It wasn't by design. There's some unfortunate things took place, because we were hoping to have a brother from Uganda, Brother Zulu, but the elections are on at the moment, and in their wisdom, the government has decided to shut down the country, basically shut down all the internet. So of course that was a no-go. We was hoping to have Brother Sibelo with us today, but unfortunately, as we talk about Africa, he said there's been like a power outage that put him the internet out for him. So as we can see, as Africa goes from strength to strength, there's much work needed to build this infrastructure. And we all have a role to play in it. There's many young Africans now going through the universities, going through the colleges, and acquiring very, very key skills. And a lot of them are leaving and then thinking, oh, I went for this job, I didn't get it, went for that, and I ended up doing jobs that they're not really, the jobs, the positions that they should be holding in terms of what their qualification would warrant them have. They're not doing it, because we know we live in a racist society, and the society is always going to seek to hold us back. So give it a thought. What about transferring those skills onto the motherland? They're very much needed. Every time I talk to people on the motherland, they're saying, look, we need you, whatever skills you have, Africa needs. Africa needs, like I'm saying, in electronics, as we know right now, it's artificial intelligence is the future. We know IT, we know all the engineering, the medical profession. Just give Africa a chance and use it, and I'm sure you won't regret it. So I have to go. There's one, let me just take this one point and then I'll hand over to Ndugu Umani. One point I just saw come up. Let's look at it quickly here. And it says, okay, tariffs was mentioned as a way of counteracting the economic imbalance. Will this be a game changer in cases like France that apply negative interest financial affairs in Africa? Exactly. That's what Africa should have been doing. The various countries in Africa should have been doing that years ago, because Europe, the EU, all the other trading bloc, they do not hesitate to apply tariffs. They do not hesitate to apply tariffs. If they think the internal market is threatened in any way, tariffs is suddenly applied. I mean, I could give you an example of something that I was involved in years ago when we tried to import a particular commodity into the country. And it's just so that they monitor how much of this commodity is in the country at any one time. And when it gets to a certain level, they bang some high tariffs off. And because we were new into the market and we didn't really understand it, we bought this product in when the tariff was sky high. So high was the tariff that it wasn't worth us clearing the things from the dock. It just wasn't worth it, because what we would have had to have paid to have cleared it, it wouldn't have been possible to sell it. So in the end, we ended up, the cheapest thing was to do, because storage was being paid, was to donate the whole product, donate it to a worthy cause. So thank you again for being with us this week. And right now, I'd like to hand you over to Ndugu Mani, who will be changing the vibrations for us.
Asante sana and holding the fort so well this week by yourself, as you are excellently able to do. A very pertinent discussion that we had, and really important, and love to see the questions that were coming in and they're answering. And the thing to think about in this particular case is we're going through this massive change. We're going through this pandemic, and the world is changing. That creates opportunities. If their systems are shaken, if their economic systems are shaken, which we all agree had their boot heel on African necks and Caribbean necks and Africans, wherever we are on the face of the world, isn't that the ancestors and the creator giving us an opportunity to do something? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? So why are we complaining? If the economic system is crushed, if they're too busy focusing on what they have to do to keep themselves safe, that gives our areas like Africa, that isn't suffering in the same way, and the Caribbean, that isn't suffering the same way, an excellent opportunity to do something. Isn't this what we've been asking for? Isn't this what we? So why are we complaining?
Well, like I said, the ancestors work in mysterious ways.
Exactly.
Who would have thought that when this pandemic started, the economy of America would be on its knees, being shut down. The economy of Europe would be on their knees, to the point that now they're panicking. And they're saying to themselves, when we look at Africa, people are carrying, living their lives. So no, we can't have that. So I know in the case of Senegal, that I'm very close to, France ordered them to shut down. The cases of COVID to date in Senegal is about 20,000. Exactly. They reckon about 200 people would have died of COVID-related things, and a lot of them would have been French people escaping Europe, going to Africa to expect the pandemic. They have been flooded into Africa. So a lot of those numbers will be accounted for by them. And yet, they are being ordered. Macron has more or less ordered the Senegal president to shut down. We want you to shut down, and we want you to vaccinate everybody. Because it's like, why should we feel the pain alone? You need to feel the pain with us. That's what I'm saying. I salute President Magufuli for standing firm and saying there's no way I'm going along with this madness.
As I understand it, recently the president of Zambia,
backbone that he has to stand up to these oppressors, and that's what I'm saying. Tariffs. Africa should have been doing that a long time ago. They should have woken up and seen what was happening to them. But hopefully, it's never too late. There's a lot of things wrong with it, but the start has been made, and it can only go from strength to strength. And like I'm saying, every one of us in the diaspora has our role to play as well.
Absolutely. And we hear as well that now that the president in Zambia is saying we're not taking it either. Yeah, we have to check it out first before we know it's safe. So it's being the word is getting there, and the environment is changing. We must protect ourselves. We must be wise, but we should take a note of what is happening and what the ancestors and the all have put in our way for us to take advantage of. And if we don't take advantage of that, is on us.
That's true.
Okay. So on that point, we're now going to ring the chime, and a case in point would be 5 times, because 5 is the spiritual number for change and activity.
You're going to put up the...
Oh yes,
Sorry.
I will. Thank you very much. So I will ring it 5 times. And as I was saying, is for the spiritual number for change, activity, for intent, for taking charge. And this is a 5-year. 2021 is a 5-year. Yeah, so it's about us seeing opportunities and taking them. Change creates opportunities. So, and no one can say we haven't seen change. So we'll ring it 5 times. If we close our eyes, sit straight. If you wish to take part, hands on your thighs, feet flat on the floor. Your spine is straight so that your 7 energy centers are straight and in line so they can resonate. As we close our eyes, breathe deeply. That cleansing breath. Become the connection between your spirit and your physical entities become stronger and clearer. And we give gratitude to the ancestors who have been with us, with the powers, the aspects of the creator, the aspects of the all that underpin all things and are within us, that we've invocated to be with us, and so that they can help us manifest our objectives, that we can see the change we want. But that only comes because we are active in that change, and we come together and we think and we plan and we stretch that and actually do. We become co-creators. When we do that, we take a step towards our divine purpose. Our ancestors and the powers take 10 steps towards us. So giving thanks and gratitude and in love and fellowship with each other. Allow the vibration to go around you, over you, and through you as we start to bring this ritual and this session to an end. Moja. Mbili. Tatu. Nne. Tana. And now, as Ndugu said, I will share my screen. And is that visible, my brother?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So these are affirmations and words of power. Our words are vibration. All things are mental. All things come from the creator. And so our thoughts and our words are aspects of the creator, are energy of the creator. So when we say these things, we have to say it with meaning and intent and belief. And so when we say these things, we bring it into reality. So please do join me if you wish. But if you're unsure or you've not come across it, it's best not to say it. Your higher self is watching. Your higher self is taking note of what you commit yourself and whether you actually do something about it, whether you actually bring it into being, or is it just words? Our practice and our culture is not just words; it's a reality. And so when we do these things and we say it with make it our highest intention, our highest excitement, we will bring it into fruition. So please, with energy and the power that it deserves and the respect, if you wish to join, follow after me. Nguva Zote.
Nguva Zote.
kwa watu wetu,
kwa watu wetu,
mapenzi ya wote
mapenzi ya wote,
ni mapenzi yetu,
ni mapenzi yetu,
hakuna mwanzo
hakuna mwanzo
na hakuna mwisho.
na hakuna mwisho.
Anuk, amen.
Anuk, amen.
Which means in English, all power to our people. The will of the all is our will. There is no beginning and there is no end to us. I am, amen. I am the unseen and hidden power. You see the red, black, and green, and you see purple. Purple because that's the spiritual color for intuition, for divine wisdom. So, Asante Sana, Jamal.
Yeah, Asante Sana and Dugramane, and thanks for that again. So I'd like to say Asante Sana also to all those who tuned in this week, and we'll be back again next week with another very dynamic session. So until then, I bid you kwaheri.